Hello, my darling. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked in the mirror and not fully recognized the woman staring back at you? And it's not because of a wrinkle, God forbid, or a silver strand in your hair, but because somewhere along the way, tell me if this is true for you, because it was definitely true for me. Somewhere along the way, life reshaped me. Did it reshape you? And you're not sure when you stopped recognizing yourself. I know. I've experienced that too. And it's not the most pleasurable thing to experience. However, reinvention isn't just a fresh haircut or a new city or a career change. It has more to do with it's a rebirth. It's an act of conscious creation. It's the moment you decide that you are no longer available for that old version of you. She's tired and she is unloved. And you are now ready to step into this next chapter with clarity, confidence, and power. Welcome to Feminine Spaces, the sanctuary for women 40 plus and beyond, where we gather to amplify our relationship wisdom, self-mastery, and conscious living. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of reinvention, decade by decade, and how you can use this as the most powerful portal to reclaim your feminine essence and create a life that feels wildly authentic. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Okay, so let's talk about the psychology of reinvention, because there's something to it. And every single decade we experience, it means something. So when we talk about the psychology of reinvention, we're talking about your brain thrives on novelty, but fears the unknown. So the dichotomy of this is that we stay in comfort. So by midlife, the brain has formed very well-worn neural pathways from the habits that you've continued to use, the identity labels you've put on yourself, and if we're honest, as women, there are social roles and responsibilities. So psychology calls this identity foreclosure. And it's when we lock ourselves into a version of who am I? And totally forgot that we can still rewrite how we want our life to really be. So let's talk about the difference between emotional safety versus emotional growth. Okay, your nervous system prefers predictable, even if it's unfulfilling. So reinventing ourselves requires leaning into the discomfort long enough for it to become the new normal. And as uncomfortable as that is, it's part of the cycle of doing anything new. It's always going to be uncomfortable before we become comfortable and familiar. And this is why change feels so hard. It's not because you're incapable. It's because your body is wired to keep you in the familiar. So, okay, now, what is the difference, or how do we open this up to understand self-concept and feminine energy? A woman's self-concept is deeply tied to her perceived value in relationships when it comes to beauty and contribution, especially in this culture that we live in that worships youth. So true invention requires detaching your worth and mine from those outdated standards and building it on self-trust, on pleasure, and on being fully authentic, which is something super interesting and difficult to think about because now you're playing a new role. Because here we are in this decade to decade. So let's break it down because there's definitely a reinvention psychology that you and I experience from our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, and into our 60s. So your 30s are considered to be, from a psychological perspective, the awakening of the individual desire. From a psychological perspective, this is often the decade where external achievement is prioritized, which means it's our career, it's our family, and it's, whether we want to admit it or not, it's social climbing. So many women silence their true desire to meet societal checklists. And reinvention is focused on learning to differentiate between what you wanted and what you want now by asking, what do I truly want for myself? Apart from the family, the kids, the husband, the friends, and the culture. Because feminine power and the moves that you're making now begin by saying no without guilt. Curating relationships and work environments that energize you rather than drain you. In our 40s, it's about the identity reckoning, because in our 40s, we go through menopause and we drop the empathy and loving everybody and focus on ourselves. And that's the identity reckoning. So in psychology, Jung called this midlife individuation process. It's when we see the gap between who we were and who we pretend to be. So reinvention focus is unmasking. It's letting go of the titles, the roles, and the mask that no longer fit. And the feminine power move in this is cultivating that magnetic boundary to protect your emotional energy like it's a rare gemstone. And you don't want anybody putting their fingerprints on your rare gemstone that you are. Now in your 50s, girl, this is the power decade. From a psychological perspective, it's when the brain shifts towards meaning and making. It's many women report an internal liberation. That voice of self-criticism, it grows quieter, while the voice of self-approval grows stronger. This is when we focus on reinvention. It's where we look at expansive living and trying what was once, oh, it's too late, or I'm being too selfish. We have squashed that. We have moved on to the feminine power move. And this is where we step into your visible power. It's where you speak, you write, you create, you travel, you lead. By definition, you become the matriarch of your own destiny. Now, what I'm looking forward to is the 60s and beyond, because this is the era of the embodied woman. From a psychological perspective, Erickson's stage of integrity versus despair. That's reflecting on life and deciding if it was well lived. This is also when cognitive flexibility can remain high. Yeah, if you can keep challenging yourself. So the way that you keep challenging yourself is by focusing on legacy crafting, investing in what matters most, and passing on your wisdom. And your power move, your feminine power move, is to live unapologetically. Wear that red dress. Start the business. Take a lover. Be ungovernable in your joy. Doesn't that give you something so magnetic and magical to look forward to, moving from our 50s into our 60s? Because I also know from experience, as being in my 50s, is that there is a feminine confidence formula. And okay, so I'll share with you like the practical application and the inspirations behind it. And we could start with one, which is reclaiming your rituals in the morning or evening, those moments that are entirely yours. You know, the tea ceremonies that we have done here on Feminine Spaces, or writing in your journal, or my morning walk that I take every day for an hour. And also master the mirror talk. Replace that self-criticism and identify affirmations. You start off with saying, I am the woman who, ... Fill it in for yourself. You can also create an exquisite list instead of a to-do list. And this is the list that's made up of experiences and feelings and aesthetics that make you feel the most alive and the most beautiful. So, embody before you come. That means to dress, to move, and to speak as the woman you're becoming, even before the evidence of her is here. And, you know, I always talk about our council, which is building your tribe of people around you that want to expand, who want to live boldly, and who believe in you. And more importantly, the you that you're becoming, the you that you have shared, the woman that you want to step into and become her, and have a group of cheerleaders all around you. So, how do we reinvent ourselves? Let's go a little bit more deeper, because, you know, I always like the psychological perspective. So first you start off with the psychological decluttering, which is releasing all of those outdated stories about who you are. Write them down, challenge them, and replace them with who you're becoming. Then there's that physical symbolism. Now that you've addressed it, you've identified where you want to go, the physical symbolism is about changing something in your environment that mirrors your new chapter. It could be your wardrobe change. It could be changing your bedroom or your workspace. And my favorite, which is why I have Feminine Spaces, is about skill seduction. Is to learn something entirely new, not for productivity, but for pleasure, like painting or tango or learning a foreign language or learning this DJI Osmo Pocket 3 camera system and YouTubing and videoing. All of that allows me to recalibrate pleasure and frustration. But when I learn, it's pleasure. And those micro moments of indulgence that remind my nervous system and yours that you are worthy of those good things now. And then, what's the most important relationship you have other than the one that you have with yourself? It's with your spouse. So focus on rewriting it. Communicate your new standards with kindness, but firmness. And release those who resist your growth. You don't want to be people that say, oh, you can't do that, or you're too old for that. Those people do not level you up and support you. So here we are, and we're thinking about what's a soul level action that you can take that focuses on you reinventing yourself. And my darling, you know what? You don't need permission from anybody to be reborn. The woman don't mistake the woman that you were, because she's the bridge to the woman you're becoming. She's the destination. So every single decade, every layer, you get to keep evolving. You get to fall in love with yourself all over again and with your partner. So reinvention is not, it's not an ending. It's a homecoming. It's coming back to who you are and what you want to become. So what's the first step that you're going to take today towards becoming her? That version of you that dresses, that speaks, that walks into a room, that captures a place, that captures herself. If anything I've spoken with you today has touched your soul, I want you to subscribe. And remember that all of us women here, we're all ready to step into that power, to remember where we come from. And know that until next time, take up space, feel your joy, and live the most exquisite truth. Because you, my darling, are loved.